Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Rebelathon. My name is Timothy Turner Parrish, aka TTP, and I am with Kessel Base. And today we have the privilege of having my boy Sullivan Jones with us today. Sullivan, how are you doing?
Pleasure, my man. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on the show and for taking the time to talk to me.
No problem. I'm really excited to interview you today. As you know, in case you don't know, I cosplay as Mace Windu, and Sullivan Jones here is the narrator of the Star Wars book called Star Wars Shatterpoint, which focuses on Mace Windu himself. So it's
Indeed.
a pretty exciting book. So
Yeah.
why don't you tell us about us?
Yeah. So what was really interesting about this doing this book is that, as you probably know, and the listeners know and the watchers know, it had already been recorded. I think about 15 or so years ago.
Okay.
And they wanted to, it was an abridged version that they recorded. So I think it was like maybe 2/3 of the book. Um, and the publisher and the Star Wars family and world wanted to get the full on version. So Kevin Thompson, who directed it, reached out to me. I'd worked with him on a few things and said, "Hey, we're going to do the full version. Would you mind auditioning for it?" And I auditioned, like I'm sure a bunch of other people did. And about a month, 2 months later, they called me and said, "You are the guy." And then I got nervous. Then I was like, "Oh, damn! Now I gotta do this for real, and I gotta read it, and I gotta do my research and all that stuff." So it was a gift, man. It was a real treat to be able to work on it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and start with the obvious question, of course, which is how were you involved in the new Shadowpoint audiobook?
Yeah, so I voiced I voiced the entire story. I voiced Mace. I voiced all of the characters, Yoda, Palpatine, everybody, from start to finish. And it was about a 3 or 4 day process, about 7, 8 hours a day, to record it. We recorded it here in New York, and yeah, that was it. I'm the voice of the whole thing.
Oh, sounds like a pretty fun job.
Yeah,
Sounds like it's a pretty fun job to do, especially in the studio and such. So,
I know, right?
um,
It's crazy to be
how
able.
long?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's crazy to get paid to do something that's just like so much fun, you know?
Yeah, I bet that's a dream come true, man.
Yeah.
How long does it take for you to narrate an audiobook, like for each day?
Yeah. So it's usually about 7 hours a day, with breaks, about every hour, hour and a half, I take a 5, 10 minute break. Then there's a lunch break. But we got in, I think, with this one about 10 a.m. every day and left around 6 p.m. Um, and so it was a 7, 8 hour day for about 3 days, and I think we did a half day on the fourth day. So what is that? That's like 30 hours roughly, 28, 29, 30 hours. So it's a long time of just sitting there and reading.
That's cool. Well, it sounds like a better day job than most of us have in our
Yeah.
regular lives or stuff. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
anyway, usually when audiobooks are being made, the book itself is new. Had you read Shatterpoint before? Had you read Shatterpoint before, and how did you prepare for narrating it?
Yeah, so I hadn't read it before I got the job, but then as soon as I got, asked to do it, I of course went and read it. And then usually, like, what I do is I'll read the book through once, and then I'll go back and I'll start to think of voices and characters. But what made this one interesting is that, what they told me early was like Yoda has to sound like Yoda. I can't just be like, actually, Yoda's gonna sound like this. There's none of that.
Can't sound like
You know,
Mickey. He's got to sound like Yoda, of
Yeah,
course.
he
So.
had to sound like Yoda. And Mace, because he's played by Sam Jackson in the movies, um, they kind of wanted like a rough approximation of him. They on the first day they said, "Hey, can you do a Sam Jackson impersonation?" And I went like, "I want to make this my character and my thing. I'll get some of the essence and the spirit of it, but I don't want to try and do Sam Jackson because I just think that's going to be corny." So I like,
Yeah.
pulled it into my lane a little bit. But then characters like Palpatine had to be pretty much the same, as he was in the movie. And I think that was it. Everybody else, I pretty much made my own. throughout the course of the book.
Cool. Yeah, it's understandable how you want to make, Mace your own character. You don't necessarily want to imitate the actor Samuel L. Jackson. You want to imitate the character that he plays. Sam Jackson is another person. Mace Windu is actually a different entity than Sam Jackson himself. Sam
Exactly.
Jackson, he talks, very loud and talks like a brother. Whereas
Yeah.
Mace, he's very stoic and, and very dignified.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's understandable, like especially for someone who who cosplays as Mace Windu. You put your own little taste into it as well. So
Exactly. Yeah, but he belongs to all of us. Whatever your imagination brings to it is what it can be.
definitely, it's one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe.
How did you get first introduced, and how did you get interested in Mace? When did that happen for you?
Basically when the first episode came out, and when my mom and I learned that Samuel L. Jackson was going to be in the movie, it definitely piqued our interest. My only disappointment, especially for the first episode, was that he wasn't in it a lot and we didn't see him do as much.
Right.
And definitely when the second episode came, it came up and picked up and we actually got to see him in action.
Right.
And we got to see the purple lightsaber for the first time, which was amazing. It was mind-blowing to see that.
Right. Crazy.
And of course, there's the scene with Yoda, of course, when we finally got to see Yoda fight for the first time.
Yeah.
We could not stop laughing at that. But yeah, just since then, there's not, there's a reason why, Mace is a favorite character, of ours, is because, especially for, African Americans like us, there's not a lot of, African American characters in the Star Wars universe, in the Star Wars lore. I mean, we had Lando Calrissian, who was cool, and then we got Samuel L. Jackson, and now we have what's his name, Finn from the sequel trilogy.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely a good thing to represent, someone of our culture, to be in Star Wars.
Yeah. So. No, absolutely. And that goes for the whole universe. As as the world shifts, you want to see more people represented. Exactly. When did you start cosplaying? When did that happen?
I started cosplaying roughly about 5 years ago. Well, I'll say this: I officially started cosplaying 5 years ago. I had been before then. I had been dressing up with a friend of mine as a Ghostbuster. Obviously, I was Winston Zeddemore in that group.
Right.
And like ever since I started cosplaying, as the Ghostbuster, I met up with other cosplayers as well. It was at a birthday party, and I met some other cosplayers who were there as well. And some of them were putting together a Marvel group at the time, and I asked to join. I was initially going to join as Sam Jackson's character of Nick Fury. I was going to pull off that, but someone else came up with a bright idea, since no one's done the character before, not Nick Fury, but that's a typical character for me to do.
Right.
But someone else suggested a character that no one's done before, which was the character of Falcon. I was like,
right.
I was like, yeah, that definitely puts turned on a light bulb there. So it was a challenge for me to actually do that, because like I say, it was my first time officially becoming a cosplayer. And I had to research on how to put together, a Falcon uniform, because I didn't know how to put together a uniform or a really cool, looking cosplay at the time. Right. So I basically had to do my research. I had to look up how people, make their armor as such. I had to look up where to find it, which basically is like, they sell them everywhere, like at Home Depot and other hardware stores where you get EVA foam and other supplies to put things together, and just order stuff on the internet, put your own style into it. And next thing you know, like when I debuted Falcon, he was a hit. He was a big hit. And after that, I ended up branching up doing other characters. My other character was Gambit. A lot of people were skeptical about how I was gonna make Gambit, especially since I'm African American. Right. Once I finally pulled it off, and it wasn't easy trying to put him together. But once I finally put him off, rest assured, it became another big hit of mine. And now Gambit is another trademark character that I cosplay.
That's
So
fun, man.
yeah, you know, having to do this for about 5 years, I'm
Right.
still learning as I go. So,
That's what
but
I'm
yeah,
sure what makes it fun. It's like if there were, part of the process is you trying to like up the game every time, trying to do something different and something interesting every time you go out, right?
yeah, and that's the whole beauty of cosplay. It's just,
Yeah.
it's all about, trying new things and having it evolve.
Right.
You can start off, one character like this, and you want to evolve the character, add something better to make him more new and different, or
Yeah.
more comic accurate, or put a new taste to it, and it gets better and better. That's, like I said, it's the whole beauty of cosplay.
Yeah.
You don't have to have, you don't have to be, the exact ethnicity or style as
Right.
the character. You put your own flavor into it, and you just make it your
Right.
own, and it becomes a hit. It becomes a trademark. So
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing with doing audiobooks. It's I don't if I'm acting in a movie and the character is black, the actor's going to be black. But in an audiobook, with an audiobook, if as long as you can convincingly sound like something, you can play it, which is fun. It's so much freedom to that.
I would say that there would be like a little not necessarily a disagreement, but a little
Yes.
comparison, because I know at one point some people may agree that
Right.
James Lamar, Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince, was
Yeah.
the voice of Shredder instead of getting an Asian guy, but that's a
Yeah.
cartoon, so
I mean,
he didn't necessarily have to be Asian to play the Shredder. I mean,
right.
once you're voice acting, it really doesn't necessarily, matter if you can pull off the character, it works. Heck, the guy,
Right.
the guy who was the voice of Splinter in the first two Ninja Turtles movies, Kevin Clash, he's a black guy.
Right.
No one probably wouldn't have guessed that. The same guy who voiced Master Splinter is the same guy who voiced Elmo in Sesame Street and Baby Dinosaur from Dinosaurs. So
That's right. That's right. That guy's a legend. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think it should go. It has to go in many directions. So like, as long as an Asian actor is also getting to play other races or ethnicities, great.
right.
But if Asian actors aren't getting hired and they're only hiring white people or black people, then that's a problem.
Definitely. It all
So
shows.
as long as, and I mean, I don't think it is a level playing field. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. But it's got to be everybody having access to every role.
Agreed.
Otherwise,
It
it
all
doesn't.
shows. Agreed. It all depends on on your range. All depends on
Yeah.
your range. Or something.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Right.
so this book spends a lot of time in Mace's head, and your narration conveys his emotions very well. I listened to the book recently, and you pulled it off very well. I love your narration.
Appreciate it.
What was it like getting into the thought process and getting to know Mace Windu more as a character or as a person?
Yeah, it was difficult because he, like you said earlier, he is real stoic and kind of measured. He's not really excitable. So you want to make sure you're conveying that without being boring, without people checking out and going, okay. And it's hard because he has all these diary entries. And it's like
Yeah.
5 pages in the book, 5 pages of a diary entry. And he's sort of talking to himself, and it's hard. So it's like, okay, how do we keep this interesting and alive when it's just him kind of monologuing into his audio, into his, he like had a journal, like a recording journal that he used. So a lot of that was just trying to keep the story interesting by really leaning into the imagery, really leaning into his memory. How does it make him feel? So he's not just telling you a memory, but he's reliving it in a way as I'm reading it. And then a lot of it too is movie magic. In post-production, they add sounds, they add sound effects, they add, all this different ambiance that creates, the sonic world, rather than just, it's not just me, you're not just listening to me, you're listening to a whole environment.
Definitely. And it's like, man, I gotta tell you, like those diary moments, it definitely helps you get to know him more, because it's it helps you kind of understand him and see him more, as a person, compared to how we see him in all the other films or in other media, animated TV shows and such. You
Right.
actually get to see and know, what he's been through in life. And this, what he goes through in this story it's a big challenge. It's a really big challenge. And he
Yeah.
goes through things and has to go through emotions that we as an audience wouldn't think he would go through,
Right.
especially as a Jedi Master, and knowing how high he ranks, as a Jedi Master, you wouldn't think that he would have, this much of a challenge,
Right.
in this story. So it's pretty
Yeah.
compelling.
Cool.
So Shatterpoint is it's a very dark and very interesting, but still awesome and amazing book. So what were your thoughts on it?
It's funny because my mom who listens to all my stuff, shout out to my mom. She was like, I had to stop listening, about 4 or 5 hours in, because it was so dark and heavy and it gets intense, and I was like, just stick with it. There's light at the end of the tunnel, just stick with it. But it is it's a really dark, it's almost like an Apocalypse Now kind of vibe. That's the world, Heart of Darkness, Joseph Conrad, like going into the heart of the jungle and trying to find a way out. And the jungle is sort of like this nightmare that everyone is a part of. So what helps with that is really, making jokes between recording, really being light between recording, so that when it's time to go in and do the job, you have energy and emotional availability to do it.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, the whole jungle sequence, not just the jungle, but like the whole planet. Like when he first lands, there's violence going on. It's just
Right.
like, I'll say this, it's almost like, like you're being in the hood or something like that. You're just minding your own business. Next thing you know, there's a shooting going on, and then someone gets shot or gets killed or such. It's a very, very dark environment, and a very, different environment than what we're used to seeing Mace Windu in and some of the other media and such. So,
it's a great analogy.
Yeah, pretty compelling tell to see, where he has to go through in this story.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. And like also, to just piggyback on that, when stuff does go down in the hood or wherever you're at, like whether or not you want to be a part of it, you have to be a part of it in some way, either as, a witness to something that may or may not say something about what you saw, what you heard, or you have to take a side, you know what I mean? So you can't just be a bystander. And Mace really has that journey where he shows up and, he's got to fight. There's no way to come out of this peacefully. He's got to fight for it.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, knowing that, Mace is played by Samuel L. Jackson, it sounds like a movie Samuel L. Jackson would be, even, if it's not, a Star Wars movie. It sounds like, compelling, coming of age story, or, a good story that he would probably be a part of.
Right.
And like I said, it's just, it just takes place in space. So it's like I said, it's a very rather compelling, tell about, society and, the environment you're in, and especially around war as well, since, this takes place around the wartime. So this is definitely a compelling war story to tell. Yeah. So does anything in the book, change the way you see Mace Windu in the movies or TV shows and any other media?
I mean, it just gave him, like you said, way more dimension as a person. A lot of times in the movies, particularly a big universe like this, where there's so many characters, I guarantee you they filmed a bunch of scenes with Sam Jackson that didn't make it into the movie because of just time or whatever. I don't guarantee you, but I imagine it. Maybe it didn't, but I imagine it happened. But what's nice here is we get to see, his humanity. We get to see a little bit of his tenderness toward the Padawan. We get to see some of the sense of compassion and the righteousness that he has about what it is that he's doing. We get to see some humor. He gets to be funny and a little sarcastic at times. So it just broadens, the spectrum of what he's able to offer as a full character.
Yeah, especially with the character Rick, he's the guy who brings a lot of the humor to the story. So that was a character I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that was like the most fun playing. That was going back and forth. It was sort of like it's like a Kevin Hart and The Rock kind of movie. You know, The Rock is a straight man, and then Kevin Hart's always over here making jokes. It was that sort of,
or
that was
like
kind of the energy.
or like Rush Hour as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Or Bad
You know,
Boys.
Jackie
You
Chan's
know.
like the muscle, and you got Chris Tucker being the mouth of everything. So
Yeah. No, that's exactly it.
definitely works. But yeah, something else that's really compelling was you actually get to see, how much of a relationship that he has with his Padawan,
Right.
Depa Billama, which wow, it's this definitely tells us a lot about her because we don't even see her that much in the films. Like we only see
Right.
her in like the first episode. We don't see her anyplace else in the
Right.
films. I know she's in some of the animated series and all. She's featured in that
Yeah.
more prominently. You actually, it seems like this one definitely, brings out, the relationship on, how he trained her, how he sees her more like a not just a Padawan, but like almost like a daughter
Exactly.
in a way. So
Yep.
it's like it's a very, very emotional journey.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough. I don't know if you've experienced, my personal relationship is like when there's someone that you love and really care about, and you feel like they're not on the right path, or even worse, they're going down the wrong path. You know, how do you lovingly bring them back and reel them in while at the same time letting it, knowing that it's their journey, it's their personal journey, and you can't really totally save them if they're not willing to be saved. So that hit. I have some relationships like that, and that definitely hit me personally from the book.
So going back to another question on how you make all the voices as such, the voice that you make for the main villain, you sound a lot like Tony Todd. Was that one of your inspirations for putting the voice together for the main villain of the story?
Interesting. I don't even, who is Tony Todd?
You don't know who Tony Todd is?
I'm gonna look him up right now.
Candyman.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Tony Todd.
He's known as Candyman in the horror movies.
Oh, this brother, yes.
He's also the voice of he's done a lot of voice acting as well. I think he's the new voice of Venom in the new video game, the Spider-Man video game that's coming out.
Wow.
He was in the second Transformers movie. You know his voice. He plays he's the voice of the Fallen in that. He's done like several films and TV shows.
Yeah.
He's been in both Hercules and Xena. He's done like everything, but he's known prominently as Candyman.
So now I gotta go watch Candyman.
So you definitely have to watch that.
Yeah,
it's
I
a
definitely
classic.
recognize.
This time it's October. That's a perfect movie.
It's a must see.
Perfect movie to watch. So
yeah. No, so when we were doing that. Go ahead. What'd you say?
I said you definitely want to watch the original Candyman, 1992. Watch that one before you watch the reboot that came out recently.
Cool. So. I like that. Yeah. So when I was doing the voice, it's basically that. It's that thing that happens to your voice. And that's one of the things, like either you can do it or you can't. Like when I was a kid, I found out that I could do that. And the director, he was like, do you know that voice that I'm talking about? Before I did it, he was like, there's that like voice. And I was like, this voice, is that the voice? And he was like, yeah, that's the voice. He's like, let's do that voice. And then that's the voice that I did. And then they like messed with it with, in post-production, they messed with it a little bit. But one thing about doing that voice is, my man, that is hard to do for a long time.
Yeah, especially it's gonna probably like strain your throat a little bit, especially if you're with the larynx and such. It's definitely gonna be hard on the larynx because basically, like besides Tony Todd, you kind of discover your Dr. Claw voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Claw exactly. Inspector Gadget. I discovered doing that when I was like in the 5th grade, and it is a very
Let me hear it. Let me hear yours.
Let me hear yours. On your throat. So, yeah.
Can you do it? Do your version.
Where is he?
Yeah.
Where is he?
Yeah.
You weak, pathetic fools! I've come for your souls.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But anyway, that's a completely different media right there. So.
Yeah, no, it is Dr. Claw. So. Yeah, there you go. It is. It's funny that you say that because now I'm remembering that's when I first knew I could do it was Dr. Claw. with Inspector Gadget, and then I started trying to do it, and that's when I realized, that I could do it.
That's definitely. So, as you well know, we're primarily a costuming group.
Yes,
Would you be interested in putting on a
yeah,
Mace Windu cosplay?
yes. Let's do it. When and where?
You can order. You can either make it yourself or you can
Okay.
order it online. I mean, they sell it on Amazon, eBay, Etsy. You have people in the Rebel Legion who make screen accurate versions of Jedi uniforms all the time or such. So just hope you have the right amount of dough or such.
Yeah, I think I would be into like sourcing it, like going to like a thrift shop or something and trying to find a bunch of different pieces. I think that would be the way I would get into it. But let me know, man. Invite me to a party and I'm there. Except we
Oh
can't
yeah,
be.
definitely.
Can we be Mace at the same time, or is that a no?
I mean, like I've done like events where someone else has dressed up as Mace as well. So how
Okay,
you do it is like since he's older Mace, I would be younger Mace or something like
got you,
that. So
got you.
and
Okay, so
since
we'll work it out.
I guess since you have I guess since you have hair or such, you
Uh,
probably just have to go probably have to get a
the
tail or
cat.
something like that and pin it to the back of your head, and you probably
Yeah.
be like Padawan Mace or something like that. So
Okay. Okay.
now
Cool.
unless you're willing to shave your head, then
Right.
go for
Right.
it.
I'll think about
So
that.
yeah.
I'll think about that one.
So you've recently done a High Republic audio drama as well,
Yes.
Tempest Runner. Do you want to continue doing more Star Wars projects in the future?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's fun. Most of the audiobooks you do, I've done maybe between 10 and 15, to be honest. I can't remember, which is not a lot. There's audiobook people who have done hundreds, literally hundreds. Uh, but most of the ones you do, no one cares. You do them and they come out and maybe your mom calls you and says, "Hey, great job, honey." But to be in the Star Wars universe where you do anything, you could do the smallest character and like everyone knows about it and all these people are listening to it. That makes it fun and that makes it almost more worthwhile.
That's awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
have one last question, and
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
this will be the interesting one. So, knowing we've read the book, I've listened to the book. It's real, like I said, it's a really dark and compelling tale,
Hmm.
and I know you enjoyed it as well. Would you want to see Shatterpoint done in another form of media, like a film, animated, or TV streaming, or even a fan film, if possible?
You know, Disney Plus is doing all these, these Marvel and I don't even know who owns. It's like isn't doesn't Disney own the Star Wars IP? Is that right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Um,
They own just about everything now. Star
Everything.
Wars,
They own, yeah.
Marvel,
ESPN.
National Geographic,
Yeah.
ESPN.
Yeah. They
I
own
believe
everything.
Hulu also. They
Yeah. I
just
think
bought Fox. So
right. So um but it might be cool. The point I'm making, it might be cool to see it as like a limited series or like a 10 episode thing. I until I had read the book, I wasn't that deep into the world. So I would be more interested in hearing your point of view on like how would you like to see the story expanded? Would you want to see a movie, a 2-hour movie, or a series, or what would you want to see?
probably like, if it's a movie, it would probably maybe like a 2 or 3 part movie or something like that. Something
Okay,
like how they did with the Hunger Games.
right,
You do one chapter or Lord of the Rings, you do one
right,
chapter and you do another half. The middle part will be like the second chapter, and then the last part, the third movie, will be the last chapter, the last entry
right,
in the story or such. If it's a TV series, it would probably be like I said, a 10 part 10 episode movie or such.
right.
Even if it's animated as well, 10
Yeah,
10 episode animated series, or like I said, it could even be done as a fan film. You have people on YouTube who make fan films or such. They claim they don't own the rights. They to read the book, but to
right.
see it in a different media, to actually see what goes on, especially if you're a Star Wars fan, it would be cool to see a nice fan film based on it as well. So just
Cool.
any media will be fine, to see,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
like those, to those of us who haven't read it, it would be nice, it would be nice to actually see Mace Windu again, because
Right.
to me, Mace Windu is one of the most underrated Star Wars characters in the saga. We love Samuel L. Jackson, but we want to see more of him and get to know him more
Right.
as a person. So this will
Yeah.
be a perfect chance to actually see more of Mace Windu and actually get to see him more as a person, not just as a Jedi Master, but as a person, where he came from, his background, and see more of his dimension. So
I'm with you. Who do we call to make it happen? Do we call George Lucas?
like George Lucas, or well, George Lucas, he would probably probably have a hand in creative consulting and such, but
Yeah.
hopefully contact Kathleen Kennedy.
Okay.
I would
I'll
say
give her. I'll shoot her a text when we're done and see what she can work out.
and if you can see if she can get me to play the role of Mace, if that's okay.
I don't know. We'd have to compete. We'd have to compete for that, man.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see if we can audition for it or such. See
Yeah.
who's typically able to, to pull them off or such. So
Yeah, I'm cool to be like you could be Mace. I'll be like your like long lost brother or something. But we got to work out a way where we could both be in it.
Or if you get the role of Mace, I'd be Rick. How about that?
Yeah, no, there we go. I like that.
There we go.
We just cast it.
There we go. You hear that, Kath? You hear that, Catherine? Sign us up.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sullivan, it's good to have you, man. You've been a joy this whole time. You're a really cool
Likewise.
guy, and I love listening to your voice, narrating the book and such. Like I said, it's a very compelling book, and just it's an amazing book. You did a very good job just narrating it and bringing all the characters to life to help visualize what's going on. It's just, you're an amazing dude, and I hopefully look forward to reading it again soon. So
thank you, man. Pleasure talking to you. And honestly, recording the book, it's fun because of people like you who are invested in the world and do bring a lot of passion and intelligence to it. So I appreciate you as well.
No problem. Well, everyone, thank you everyone for joining us and tuning in. My name is Timothy Turner Parrish, and this is Sullivan Jones. And remember, the Force will be with you always.